So I've been thinking about this video for a while. I'm really excited to make it for you guys because I think it's super powerful, super helpful. And I wish I had watched this when I was 25. And so this video is called How to Think and Grow Rich. But more importantly, how to think. And to preface this video, I'm 28 years old. And up until I was about 25 years old, I just didn't know how to think. And I was never taught how to think. And you're probably thinking, what does that mean? You sound crazy. Of course you know how to think. We all know how to think. Well, hate to say it, but you're wrong. So most of people, including myself, go through our lives really without thinking. And I'll explain what I mean. So most people, including myself, a lot of life is what's called stimulus, pause, and response. So there's a stimulus, right? Think of in your own life. Alarm clock goes off. Do you think about waking up? And sometimes obviously hit the snooze button. Most of the time you're just gonna wake up, right? When you walk into a dark room, you just see the dark room and you flip the light switch automatically. You're not thinking about, what should I do here, right? You're not coming up with a creative solution to your problem. You're just, again, you have a stimulus and you respond accordingly. Now that's most people through life. Now I thought of a great analogy to really sum this up, because most people, including myself, I had great parents, had an awesome childhood, but I had a lot of things presented to me like, oh, hey, you're gonna play this sport, and hey, you should go to college, and hey, you should study this. And I'm just like, oh, okay. And I kind of went along with whatever was presented to me, right? I was going with the flow. How many times have you heard that? Someone said, hey, I'm just been going with the flow, or I'm going with the flow. What does that mean? So think of the flow. Think of yourself sitting in an inner tube going down a river, right? You're just going through the flow, looking at the scenery on the left and right, and like, oh, that's cool. But who's deciding where that river is going? Or are you just going with the flow and you're not really deciding and creating the life that you possibly want, or the life that could be way better for you? You're just going with the flow. A better example is, I used to work at a water park, right? I made minimum wage, $8 an hour, as a lifeguard when I was like 19 years old. And one of the things that I would do was had to be like a slide tube operator. I stand at the top of this, 3-story structure, and had 4 different tube slots, right? Options 1 through 4. People would come up and they'd get in line, and each of those, sometimes fully enclosed tubes or halfway enclosed tubes would then go down a slide and lead to a different pool. They didn't all go to the same pool. Why am I telling you this? Because most people, they're on that slide and they're gonna end up in that pool, but they're not deciding which pool they're gonna end up on. They're not really deciding where their tube or where their slide is going. They're just again going with the flow. But what if I told you you could fucking change wherever your slide is going? It's not gonna happen immediately. It's not gonna be like a 90 degrees or a 180, but with time, with effort, with conscious thought and your imagination, you can change where that slide is going and where you're going to end up. So how do you do that, right? How do you change where your slide's going? How do you change what pool you're going to end up in? Again, it starts with your imagination. Well, how do you access your imagination? You have to ask it a question. You can't just be like, I want a better life. I want to, do what I want to do. You have to ask it a question, right? So, because without asking it a question, it doesn't know what to focus on. You have to give it something to focus on. So, for example, if my faucet breaks in my house and I need to fix it, right? Somehow the water's gushing out of the sink. I got something to stop it. My mind goes creatively. What do I have in my house that I can use to stop this gush of water coming out of my sink? That's a question. The question is, what do I have? So now I'm thinking of an answer, right? I'm thinking of, well, I've got maybe a towel. I've got, crazy glue. I've got an orange I could shove down the pipe. Again, I'm thinking of answers to my original question. So the question you get to ask yourself, one of many, is again, who the fuck do I want to be? Who do I want to be? What does that look like? You need to take a piece of paper, ideally, or what I do is I have a Google Doc with a journal and I type the question, whatever my question is, who do I want to be, right? And then you think of the characteristics. I want to be in integrity. I want to be fun. I want to care about my friends, all these different things, right? And also then, I think a big one is weight. What do I want to look like? What does that look like? I think a lot of people today struggle with weight. But the first step is you have to imagine yourself, close your eyes, think of yourself, however you look now, and then think of how you want to actually look. So by doing that, by keeping that image in front of you and thinking of it consistently, you're activating your subconscious mind. So I'm on a tennis court, as you can see. And the reason for that is because your subconscious mind has to be trained sometimes. So for example, when I didn't know how to play tennis when I got to college, I took lessons, right? The ball would come at me and I have to practicely swing in my forehand, how to like take this shot and come up at a certain angle and do it. And I sucked and I hit it in the net a ton and I hit it over the side a ton. But eventually over practice, I developed a subconscious reaction to my stimulus, be the ball coming at me. And I could think, okay, I want the ball to go there. And then I would just think about ball going there. And subconsciously, my body would use this action of like swinging the tennis racket, and the ball would, most of the time, go there. So for you in your life, there's actions, right? Like when you make a sandwich, you just think of sandwich and you open the cabinets, you get the bread and the meat and the cheese and you put it together, but you don't think about lift my left hand, open the drawer. You just do it. So by holding that image in front of you, you're activating your subconscious mind to pull you toward that by whatever fucking means necessary to do that. If I want to get to New York, how do I get there? I'm in California. I can fly. I can take a bus. I can walk. I can crawl. I can have my friend put me on his back, who's a triathlon athlete, and he can carry me there. I can take a skateboard. There are infinite amount of ways I can get to New York. Conscious mind intention is get to New York. Subconscious mind figures out how to get there. What I would do is when I went door to door, right? And think of this example, right? So door to door, I would knock a door, a human would answer, I would say what I was gonna say, they would say what they were gonna say. I would walk around like I was gonna walk around, I would look and point like I would smile and stuff. And all these things were real, but I had imagined them over time to get better and better. So essentially, how do we get better at things, right? We fail. Trial and error. Trial and fucking error. Edison and the light bulb, he tried 100 times, 1,000 times, 10,000 times, who knows? But every time he failed, he figured out a way that didn't work. And so theoretically, he was one step closer to figuring it out. And guess what? We have lights today. He figured it out because he kept trying. He kept trial and erroring. So door to door, anything you're doing in life, I would show up, I would try to say something a certain way or certain words. It wouldn't work. And then I would sit on the curb and I would imagine the situation. I would imagine what just happened. I would imagine what they said, what I said. I was like, okay, well, what if I did that this way? What if I said it with more enunciation, or I said it quieter, or I looked away and then I came back and looked this way? And I would imagine what I thought might work. And then I would go to the next door and I would try that. But again, the question was always, what do I think would work there? If I was them, if I was the person answering the door and opening it, what would work on me? And then I would imagine that scenario, and then the next door, I would try to do my best to perform, to deliver what I just imagined, right? So I got pretty good at using my imagination. So again, a lot of people bring this full circle, don't ever use their imagination because they're not focused on anything. They haven't actually asked a question to themselves, what do I want? What do I want? Do I want a nice house? Do I want a nice car? Do I want a sexy girlfriend? Do I want to travel the world? Do I want to wake up and play video games all day? Do I want to be 300 pounds and win food eating contests? You know, whatever it is, that's okay. But again, it starts with the question. You have to ask yourself the question, or any question, what do I want? What do I enjoy doing? And then come up with answers. You're not done till you come up with answers. Whether that means you take a piece of paper, a blank piece of paper, and write your question at the top. A great way is 20 ways to blank. For me, I would frequently do 20 ways I can make more money. And I'll tell you something, a lot of them aren't going to be good, but you just need one that is. But you can't figure that one out until you ask the question. And so that's how you think, guys. I'll leave you with one last thing. If you're struggling with answers, you just have to spam your mind the same question. An example I thought of one time was something that happened to me. I was going to bed one night, laying in bed, lights off, midnight, and I had this one scene in my head from a series, and my girlfriend asked me, hey, what was that scene from? And I'm like, oh, I know the answer to this. And of course, couldn't remember, right? And then I was thinking like, what was that? What was that show, that scene that I'm trying to think of? And then I started thinking like, what was the scene? What was the scene? What was it from? What was it from? And I'm not even kidding. I would ask myself, like if I looked at you and said, like Obi-Wan Kenobi in Star Wars, and that funny thing, he's like, you're good with women, right? I just asked myself, what was that scene from? What was that scene from? what was that scene from? And I'm not even kidding, just on repeat. What was that scene from? And my mind started doing something, right? It started thinking, and it started going to, like, as I kept spamming my mind the question, it started thinking of all the things I had watched over the last year, 2 years. And I would think of, like, I watched that. Then I would, like, cycle through that. No, it wasn't from that movie. Okay, it was that movie. Like, I was basically, it was almost like a Rolodex or a Yellow Pages of all the things I had watched came to my mind one at a time. And I just filtered through them. Nope, wasn't that. Nope, wasn't that. Trial and error. Nope, wasn't that. And I'm not even kidding. And I told myself, I was like, I'm not going to bed until I figure out what it was. Like 15, 20 minutes later, I got it. But it only worked because I spammed my mind the question of what was that scene from, right? And so for you guys watching this, with enough time, with enough consistent effort, with enough imagination, guys, you can change your slide. You can end up in a different pool, and you can do whatever you want. If someone had told me 2 years ago, when I left $10,000 a month being a financial advisor to go door to door making nothing for a few months, to then now I run a solar company, I've already earned over $250,000 this year. I can wake up and play video games all day if I want to. And would have been hard to believe that 2 years ago. But just like that slide, over time, I was able to change the direction. And over time, I was able to make a curve and end up way over here versus over there. And that's what you got to do. You got to just keep imagining, keep that image of what you want your life to look like in the forefront of your mind. Because if you don't, then you're going with the flow. You're going down that river, looking at the scenery, not in control. But you can be in control if you decide to be. And so I really hope this video helps you decide to be in control of your life and decide to make of it what you wish. So with that, guys, make it a fucking great one. Because if you got to 70, 80, 90, however old you are until you die, you'd be dissatisfied with anything less. Good luck. The ball's in your court.